Hello, welcome to Run Testers. My name's Nick, and this is a review of the Saucony Peregrine 14. Peregrine 14 is the latest addition to a long-running and very popular line of trail running shoes. It's pretty similar all around to the Peregrine 13, as we'll come on to, but there have been some updates to the shoe, particularly around the upper. It cost £135 in the UK or $140 in the US. It weighs in at 295 grams or 10.4 ounces in my UK size 9. You've got a 4mm drop with a stack height of 28mm at the heel and 24 at the forefoot. Like I said, it is pretty similar all round to the Peregrine 13, but you've got an upper that's been redesigned to have a slightly better fit and be more comfortable. You know, the things that brands always say when they update an upper on a shoe, but hopefully it is the case for some people with the new version. The tongue is meant to be a little bit more comfortable, and the material in general has been designed to offer better protection from debris, according to Saucony. Got a toe bumper, as you'd expect from a trail shoe, and actually quite a large amount of padding around the heel and tongue on the shoe for quite a nice step-in feel. Saucony also says that the midsole has been updated on the new shoe with a softer version of the Power Run foam that makes up the entirety of the midsole. You've got a Power Run Plus sock liner, so a slightly bouncier feel for the insole of the shoe. I'll come on to the run test. I didn't notice a massive difference between the Power Run here and the Power Run on past versions, but it is meant to be a little bit softer. You've also got a rock plate in the midsole to protect your foot from a jagged ground. And then, as with past versions of the Peregrine, you've got that Power Track rubber outsole with 5mm chevron lugs. It's designed to make the shoe a really versatile option for trail runners that can handle a wide variety of terrain, from really quite muddy ground to harder, rockier stuff.
So on fit, I ran in my regular Saucony size, which is a UK 8.5, and as I do with most Saucony shoes, I found the fit on this to be pretty good, if a little bit snug. It does come up a little bit small moving into the toe box. There's a decent step in comfort though, and whether on the harder and flatter terrain and climbs or the steeper, faster descents, the heel hold and midfoot lockdown were all really secure. On the steeper sections, some shoes can come up a bit short and cause a bit of toe bashing, but I had plenty of clearance lengthwise in this shoe. Didn't have any problems there. Still, I think if you often find that an issue generally and you like a bit more wiggle room in the toe box, it may be worth considering going half a size up. The other time this might be smart is if you're planning on taking this shoe into ultra territory, but otherwise for regular trail outings up to a couple of hours, I'd recommend going true to size.
The fit for me in the Peregrine 14, I'm a size 8 in the UK, this is a size 8. I've never had any problems with Peregrine shoes. I always find them to be really, really comfortable from the off, and I've never had any issues. The first time I used this shoe was for a trail marathon, quite a tricky trail marathon, the Moyleman Marathon, which had a lot of elevation. It had a lot of muddy, boggy areas, and it had a lot of sort of rocky sections to climb up as well. I had no issues with the fit of the shoe, but I did get a little bit of rubbing on the heel section of my right foot. I was really worried at the start of the race because I could feel it on rubbing on the back of my heel. By the end, it was absolutely fine. I think it just took a little bit of time to loosen it up a little bit as I was wearing it. I've not had any issues in this shoe since, so I would stay to my size in the Peregrine 14.
Comes to the fit of the shoe, I was very happy in my normal running shoe size. I've got a UK 9 here, which is a US 10. It's the size I have across Saucony's range, and I found the fit really good. I had no problems with my foot banging around or hitting the toe box when running down hills on the trails or anything like that. It didn't feel too roomy or too tight, so yeah, I would stick to your normal running shoe size.
Okay, so the Peregrine range is often the shoe that I tell people to buy if they are trying trail running for the first time, or maybe are upgrading a cheaper shoe and they want to get something that's a little bit more performance-led or can do lots more things. Most of the Peregrine shoes that I've reviewed in the past have all been pretty solid shoes. I've not had any issues with previous versions, and this is really a continuation of those shoes. It still does all the same things that you get from the earlier versions of the shoe. The only real difference I can find from this shoe in terms of the ride is that the midsole is a little bit softer than what I've experienced in the previous versions. Not enough to make it a massive difference to the shoe, but I can feel it, especially on road sections. It just seems a little bit softer and maybe a tiny bit more comfortable, but I don't think that's a major issue. I found the previous versions to be very comfortable as well. Fantastic road to trail shoes if that's what you're looking for. But overall, what I would say about this shoe is that it's still a fantastic all-rounder. It's one of the best shoes out there if you're looking for a shoe that can deal with lots of different types of trails. It's not the best shoe for specific trails, so it's not great for those sort of rocky, hard trails because it's not got loads of cushioning in it, and it's not amazing at grip either. If you're going to go and do some really muddy hills in the Lake District or something, the outsole grip on this is really good. But there are better ones out there. There's some things, shoes from Innovate, like the Mud Claws and things like that, that just have a little bit more lug on them, a little bit longer, a little bit more aggressive, so they really grip onto that mud. But the Peregrine 14, it just can do everything really pretty well. So it's a bit of a jack of all trades shoe, and it's a great one to have in your armoury, especially if you're like most people and you only have one trail shoe which you just want to use for everything. You can race in it, you can go out for nice easy runs in it, you can use it for walking in the outside world if you want. It's just good for all of those things. It's just a great solid all-rounder shoe that is definitely a good option if you just want to pick up one pair and just have a great comfortable trail shoe that can do lots of different trails. The other thing about it as well is that it feels relatively nimble to run in. It's not the heaviest feeling trail shoe out there. It definitely feels like you can pick up the pace nicely in this shoe, but there's just enough cushioning to deal with longer, slower runs as well. I wouldn't use it for really long, hard trails. I'd want more cushioning in a shoe for that, but for pretty much everything, it's great, and it's a brilliant road to trail shoe as well. I've used the Peregrine series for a lot of runs from my house to the trails and back, and I've had no issues with it at all. So really solid from all those perspectives, and very comfortable upper as well. I have no issues with the upper on this shoe. There's quite a lot of padding on it, and it fits really nicely.
So I've run 55 kilometres in the Peregrine 14, mostly on muddy forest tracks, with some stints on harder ground and roads to and from the forest as well. But yeah, a lot of mud in my testing of the Peregrine. In general, I've always really liked the Peregrine as an all-rounder trail shoe because it's an all-rounder that is very comfortable in British conditions, which is to say mud in the winter. And it's a shoe I recommend to a lot of people who live around me, near the forest near me, as a result, because you can use it throughout the winter here. You know, it does handle quite deep mud well, but it is still quite a comfortable shoe for to and from the trails, and then actually through the spring and summer when the ground's a bit harder. That all remains true of the Peregrine 14. It still has that versatility as a very good all-rounder shoe for soft ground and hard ground. It sheds mud quite well as well, which isn't always the case with these kind of all-rounder shoes that can handle the mud. Like, you know, mud can get stuck on midsoles where the lugs are spaced a bit closer together, but you've got enough room here that the Peregrine does ditch it pretty quickly. Longest run in the shoe was a 90-minute run done pretty easily on very wet and flooded trails, and yeah, I'd say it is a pretty comfortable shoe all around. Like, it's not as plush and comfortable as very cushioned shoes for the road or even some of the more cushioned trail shoes out there. It's still got that light feeling that gives you a nice connected feel to the ground on the trails, but it's not too hard on the legs either. I haven't really noticed a softer feeling with the Power Run foam on this shoe compared to past versions of the Peregrine, but it is comfortable enough underfoot for extended runs on the trails. I personally wouldn't go really long in the shoe on harder ground because I think you'll find more comfortable options with maybe slightly shorter lugs and a bit more foam in the midsole, but there is enough foam there to protect the legs well if you're doing a mix of soft and hard ground or just sticking to soft ground. It's not the lightest shoe in the world, but it does feel quite nimble, I think, just because of the way the shoe's set up. It doesn't feel like a big tank on the foot when you're trying to run quick. I think it'd be quite a solid long-distance trail racing shoe as well. You know, it's not something I'd use personally. Most of the races I do would probably be like 5-mile short cross-country races where I'd use a lighter shoe like the Innovate, Mud Talon Speed, or even Spikes, something like that. But if you want a general trail shoe that you can use for comfortable training runs and then for some off-road racing, I think the Peregrine 14 would be a solid pick.
Now, in my run test, I've run around 40 kilometres in the Peregrine 14. That's mostly been on the Thames path, which flips between being flat and hard-packed and soft and muddy and a bit boggy when the weather's bad. I've also taken it on some steeper ups and downs, nothing mountainous though. I've got a 2-mile road commute as well to my nearest trail, so I've tested the road to trail potential of this shoe as well. Now, first up, I didn't notice a huge difference between the 14 and the 13 in the Peregrines. If the midsole has been softened, it's only marginally more so. The Peregrine still definitely runs firm. It doesn't cushion like a Speedgo or a Merrell Agility Peak 5, and that's noticeable on the firmer ground, but I like that in a trail shoe, particularly for runs up to a certain time on feet. For me, that's around kind of 2 hours in this shoe, though I think more kind of agile, speedy, fast foot trail runners could happily go longer. I tend to be a bit heavy, particularly picking my way down steep hills, so after a while I like a shade more cushion if I'm going to go long. You also notice that firm ride when you come back onto the road, and unless you're moving light-footed, I don't think this has great road to trail credentials. The flip here though is that there's a good response and plenty of trail feel coming up. You're connected to what's happening underfoot. I know some people are going to really like that. Now, the lower stack, lower drop was a very welcome change to the massive daily trainers that we're often testing these days, or the big stack trail shoes even. This is a shoe that encourages a light, fast foot turnover, but responds well when you're picking your way with pace and precision along those kind of fast switching trails. It's nicely controlled with a good balance. It's nicely agile as well, and it actually runs a bit lighter on the foot, I think, than the weight suggests, that you sort of the weight that you see on the scales might suggest. The rock plate does a good job protecting against stones and lumps and bumps, and I found this kind of power track outsole grip excellent in most conditions. The big 5mm lugs bite nicely into the softer ground. The only place it really struggled for me was very, very wet, sloppy mud. And sometimes on the very slippiest Thames River coated cobbles, they get covered in this kind of wet, slick mud when the river waters recede. So no shoes really handle that. On durability, I think the shoe looks built to last. There's a good structure. The sturdy and protective uppers and protection from kind of rips and scrapes here are good. I also don't think the midsole and the outsole look likely to degrade before you can get the big miles in. Verdict then, well, this is another really good all-rounder trail shoe from Saucony. It will cope with pretty much any terrain. It runs relatively light and fast with good reliable grip and a happy on-foot feel. It's exactly the kind of shoe I choose to tackle the compact trails in big forest national parks like the New Forest here, where you might head off the groomed path into more tricky terrain every now and then. It will happily handle the rolling south or north downs here in the UK, and I think it will be great to provide the sort of agility and precision you would need taking on trickier, more technical terrain too, like coastal paths here in the UK. I'm not sure it'd be my first choice for a mountain ultra. For 12 plus hours on feet, I think I'd want something a little more sort of midsole softness, but that will come down to preference on the trails, and I can see plenty of nimble runners using this shoe to go long. If you're wondering whether to get this one over the Peregrine 13, I don't think the upgrades make too much of a difference here, so I think it's worth looking for last gen deals. But I think overall the Peregrine is a good, reliable, agile trail shoe that will suit the needs of a wide range of runners, and it's pretty good value as well, a good off-road tool in any runner's toolbox.
The Peregrine 14 is a very good trail shoe. It's a really good all-rounder option, especially for people who spend a lot of time on softer ground and need something that can handle the mud during the colder seasons. As I mentioned in the run test, it's a shoe I recommend to people a lot because not only is it a really good versatile trail shoe that handles the mud, it's also pretty good value because you can usually find the Peregrine in sales with the previous model, and that would be the reason I wouldn't be looking at the Peregrine 14 myself, because it's very similar to the Peregrine 13, which is generally available in sales, and it's just as good as shoes. So I would go and seek out the Peregrine 13, get that in a deal. I wouldn't necessarily say at all you have to look at the latest model of the Peregrine, but when the Peregrine's 14 turn comes to be the older shoe and the one that pops up in sales, it is an excellent shoe, and I'd be happy to recommend that one as well. But right now I think the Peregrine 13 definitely represents better value, and I don't think the updates here have really made a huge difference to the feel of the shoe myself. But yeah, it is a very good shoe though. I really liked running in the Peregrine 14. It's one of my favourite trail running shoes. I think if you're looking for other options that are similar but slightly different, I think you could look at the Saucony Exodus Ultra 2, which is a more cushioned shoe and has a springier feel because it has some Power Run PB in the midsole. So that's a better shoe if you're looking for really long distances or doing a lot more running on hard ground than soft ground, because I do think the Peregrine's strength is really that it can handle that soft ground as well. And if you don't need that, you can get more comfortable shoes that are very versatile, like the Exodus Ultra, or the Puma Voyage 3 is another very good all-rounder shoe that I think again is very comfortable on that harder ground, probably slightly more comfortable on hard ground than the Peregrine, but maybe not quite as good at gripping when you're on the soft stuff. And if you're looking for a nippier soft ground shoe, I mentioned in the run test, the Innovate Mud Talon Speed is a really good shoe. That's got quite a minimal amount of cushioning. It's pretty comfortable. It's a shoe I'd be happy to use for regular training runs, but probably only up to about an hour. I think it beats up the legs a bit more than the Peregrine, which has a good balance of cushioning. So it is a more comfortable option for long runs on soft ground, but you get a bit more speed out of the Innovate for sure if you are looking at it as a shoe you want to use for shorter races as well as some training runs on that soft ground.
So my verdict on the Saucony Peregrine 14, great all-round trail shoe, does the same as you'd expect from the previous versions of the shoe. I would still tell people who are looking for a trail shoe to do all of their trail runs in and they just want to buy one shoe to get the Peregrine. I think it's still just a fantastic jack of all trades when it comes to the trails, and everyone should be pretty happy with it. It's not the best shoe for specific trails, but that's not a problem. For most people, where you're looking at doing lots of different trails and you're not really the sort of person who's going on one trail all the time, this is great. And it's well worth having in your armoury just to stick on when you want to go and hit the unknown and you want something comfortable that just gives you plenty of grip when you need it. So yeah, really big fan of Saucony Peregrine 14. Still think it's one of the best trail shoes for general trail running out there.
That's our review of the Saucony Peregrine 14. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, ring the little bell, and we'll see you next time.